This morning on the Crossroads News Network. Is Jesus the Messiah? Experts from across the region will debate that question. Now, live from Lakeville, here's your host, Paul Marzahn.
Good morning, and welcome to CNN, the Crossroads News Network. This morning we have a special presentation following some recent stirring rising up in the Middle East. We call this presentation The Great Debate, because we want you to get right to the heart of the matter. Could Jesus really be the Messiah? Well, if you've been following the news coming out of Jerusalem for the last several years, you may have noticed some quite uncommon commotion concerning whether or not this Jesus of Nazareth really could be the Messiah. And we want to settle that question for you today and help you decide for yourself. You see, we've lined up quite a number of experts who will weigh in on the great debate throughout our program. And we are glad you have chosen to tune in this morning, and we hope you enjoy the presentation. But first, let's look back at one of the more recent events that happened earlier this week. As you may recall, the town has been pretty excited to welcome Jesus back into Jerusalem. In fact, our correspondent Mark had this to say. As they approached Jerusalem and came to Bethphage and Bethany at the Mount of Olives, Jesus sent two of his disciples, saying to them, "Go to the village ahead of you, and just as you enter it, you will find a colt tied there, which no one has ever ridden. Untie it and bring it here. And if anyone asks you, 'Why are you doing this?' say, 'The Lord needs it, and will send it back to you shortly.'" They went and found a colt outside in the street, tied at a doorway. And as they untied it, some people were standing there, and they asked, "What are you doing, untying that colt?" And they answered, Jesus had told them, and the people let them go. When they brought the colt to Jesus and they threw their cloaks over it, he sat upon it. Many people spread their cloaks on the road, while others spread branches they had cut in the fields. And those went ahead, and those who followed shouted, "Hosanna! Hosanna! Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessed is the kingdom of our father David. Hosanna! Hosanna! In the highest heaven." Mark went on to say, as we live this moment together, let us bring out our palm branches, one another. Our first guests this morning are Ham and Mike. Ham is a temple scribe and historian, while Mike is a commercial fisherman. Thank you both for joining us this morning.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you. It is an honor to be on the Crossroads News Network.
Now, there's been a lot of debate over who Jesus really is. What can you tell us about him?
Well, first of all, I want to say that this Jesus is just some obscure blip on the radar who really doesn't deserve all of the attention that we're giving him. He couldn't possibly be the Messiah, because when the Messiah comes, nobody will know where he's from. But we know this man and where he's from. He's from Nazareth. Seriously? Can any good come out of Nazareth? Now, the prophets say that the Messiah is supposed to come from the line of David, from Bethlehem. Galilee is no place for a king.
It is true. Jesus comes from a very humble beginning. While it is true that Jesus grew up in Nazareth, the son of carpenter, he wasn't born there. In fact, Jesus was actually born in a stable in the town of Bethlehem. You see, shortly before he was born, a census was issued and Joseph took his bride Mary to Bethlehem, the town of David, to register, because he belonged to the house and line of David.
His father? Seriously, we don't even know who his father is. Rumor has it his mother was actually pregnant before they were even married. I'm not even sure that Joseph was his father. Maybe he just took her in out of the goodness of his heart, or maybe a guilty conscience. I don't know. Either way, Mary and Joseph were not the ideal parents for a Messiah.
What do you expect from a Messiah? What kind of leader should he be?
When the Messiah comes, he will restore the branch of the King of David and destroy Israel's enemies. Well, this Jesus isn't fit to be a king of God's nation. He has no interest in our faith. And while he may be able to fool a few random fishermen up in Galilee like Jim Bob and Bubba out on the lake, he can't fool me. He is not my Messiah.
Before Jesus called me to be a follower, I had completed my religious training just as everyone else had. But because of my father's health, I decided to take over the family business. I too long for the day when God will restore his kingdom. I used to think that would mean overthrowing the Roman government and raising up an army. But Jesus helped me understand the ancient scrolls differently. When Jesus read from the scroll of Isaiah, he was claiming his mission as the Messiah. He said, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, for he has appointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim the captives will be released, that the blind will see, that the oppressed will be set free." You see, Jesus has come not to establish an earthly kingdom, but to bring the kingdom of God to earth.
Sounds like to me you both have some grand expectations of the Messiah, and whether a Messiah should lead an army to overthrow the Roman government, or a Messiah who would bring God's kingdom to earth. How could any one man do all of that? Stay tuned to find out more. But first, we have a few words from our sponsor. Welcome back to CNN, the Crossroads News Network. I'm Paul Marzahn, and we're joined for this next segment by Kelly and Bridget. We want to spend this next segment looking at Team Jesus as he's building this team around him. Do these people really fit into the motif of the type of people you would expect the Messiah to surround himself by? And what kind of leaders has he attracted himself to? And what does this say for the future of our region or for future generations? Welcome to the show.
First, we should be very concerned about the quality of leaders Jesus has surrounded himself with. These are not the men and women you would first think of selecting to help you lead a movement. These men and women are unqualified, have no experience, and quite frankly, have already been turned down by other rabbis.
Even more than his pick for future leaders, I'm concerned about Jesus' overall lack of concern for our nation's laws and religious customs. On numerous occasions, Jesus has violated the law in pursuit of his own agenda. He's healed people on the Sabbath, he's associated with Gentiles and Samaritans, and even has pronounced forgiveness of sins. Who gave him the authority to forgive my sins? Who does he think he is? God?
The example Jesus has set is alarming. Our nation was built upon laws and standards. These standards were given by God directly to Moses and passed down to us for generations. Does Jesus really think he is greater than Moses?
We've got to keep the standards. It's all about the standards. Without them, our nation would crumble. We can't have Jesus washing down God's laws.
Yes, I understand that you've been upset, particularly what Jesus has done for appearing to have violated God's law. But what about the good he has done? Isn't the fact that someone has healed or restored greater than the law that's been violated?
The problem I have is Jesus appears to be adding his own interpretation to the law. We can't have a bunch of people running around and deciding for themselves which of God's laws are necessary and which of them aren't. The law has a purpose. It provides us with structure and order. It's our way to a right relationship with God. Without it, we'll be in trouble.
We have seen what happens when God's people choose to ignore his commands. The whole nation will pay for it. We've seen everything from plagues to disease, even death. We cannot risk going into exile again. God has allowed these things to happen in the past, and we must submit ourselves to God's rule now and in the future.
Jesus has no respect for God or his laws. He goes around threatening to abolish the law, saying he is the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through him. Jesus is speaking blasphemy. He's claiming to be God. He must pay for his words and his actions. He must be put to death.
Isn't it true that you or your group of religious leaders have been looking for a way to have Jesus arrested and even put to death for quite some time? He's come right out and said some pretty harsh things against you, the teachers of the law and the Pharisees. He's called you hypocrites, blind guides, whitewashed tombs, snakes, and even brood of vipers. He has said you make converts twice as fit for hell. Now these are some pretty harsh words. Do you take this kind of thing personal?
Jesus is a very dangerous man. He must be stopped. We cannot allow this man to poison the hearts and minds of the weak who do not know any better. What about the children? We've got to think about the children.
It's true we've been trying to find a way to get this man off the streets for quite some time, but we have just not been able to do it yet. That's why we've put together this plan. It will end the whole debate once and for all. You'll see soon enough.
Well, I think this is about all the time we have for this segment. I do want to thank you for participating in this special presentation. We'll be back in a few moments for our next segment. Jesus, miracles? Are they real? Welcome back. I want to jump right into this next segment because there's been a lot of debate about Jesus' miracles and, of course, healthcare reform right now. You see, our guests for this next segment are Dr. Ted and, of course, Gabe. Now, wait a second. Aren't you just a boy? How did you get on our show?
Well, when I heard you were looking for someone who witnessed Jesus' miracles, I wrote to your producers and told them I was there when Jesus fed the 5,000.
And that was enough to get you on our show?
Yes, they thought that was a miracle that was pretty hard to believe, so they said I was welcome to come on the show.
Well, I guess we will continue then. What do you make of these signs and wonders that Jesus did? Do they prove that he indeed is the Messiah? Or is he some sort of magician fooling us all?
These so-called miracles prove nothing. The fact that Jesus' followers send a boy to defend Jesus' miracles should clue us in that this is all a hoax. There's no way Jesus could have walked on water, healed a blind man, stopped a woman from bleeding, and fed 500 people.
Actually, it was more like 5,000 people. And he did it with just a little bit of food I had, 5 loaves and 2 fish.
But that is impossible. There's no way 5,000 people could be fed on 5 loaves and 2 fish. Jesus' disciples must have been slipping bread to the baskets as they were passed around.
Nothing is impossible with God. Jesus took the bread I gave him, gave thanks to God, and then passed it to the crowds who gathered. Everyone ate, and afterwards Jesus' disciples collected 12 baskets of leftovers. It just goes to show God cares for us and will take care of our needs.
What about the healings? It's been reported that Jesus cured a man of leprosy, healed a blind man, and even cured a woman who had been bleeding for quite some time. What do you make of these miracles? Are they signs?
It's all fake. It has been completely made up by Jesus and his followers. I examined that woman myself before Jesus supposedly healed her. I treated her for bleeding, and there was no way it was going to stop. There was nothing that could be done for her.
But just because you weren't able to get the bleeding to stop doesn't mean Jesus didn't have the power to heal her. Maybe she could only be healed through faith.
I'm not going to argue about faith with a child. You are young. What do you know about faith?
I do know this, Jesus said. Let the children come to me, and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of God belongs to such as these. Jesus also said, anyone who will not receive the kingdom of God like a little child will never enter it.
There, Jesus wants us to blindly believe in him and his miracles, just as a child believes in whatever an adult tells him to.
Actually, I question everything. I want to know how things work and why things happen and why they exist. I think what Jesus meant is we are to be inquisitive, like little children examining things for ourselves.
You seem bothered that Jesus could actually perform these miracles. Now really, what is your chief concern?
Well, we just can't have Jesus and his followers going around healing people and forgiving them for their sins. No, we have a system for that. What about all our temple rituals? Our whole ceremonial system would collapse. No, God has given us a way to atone for sin. Only God and our temple system can cleanse someone from their sin. What Jesus is doing is claiming a power that belongs only to God.
But if Jesus is the Messiah, then wouldn't he have the power to heal the sick, forgive sins, and bring the dead back to life?
There is no life after death.
Huh? Excuse me? What is that? You'll have to excuse me, I'm getting some breaking news coming in right now. It appears that Jesus has been arrested and is now appearing before Pilate just as we speak. We'll have more on this breaking news when we come back. Just before that last break, we received news that Jesus has been arrested and is now appearing before Pilate. We're working to get as much information as we can on these developments, and we will share them with you, what we learned throughout the remainder of this program. Our next guest happens to be one of the chief priests from Jerusalem and is ready to fill us in on more details.
That's right. As you know, Jesus was traveling throughout the region speaking all kinds of blasphemy. We couldn't take the risk any longer. Jesus was threatening not only our national security, but we believe his blasphemy was about to evoke God's wrath. That's why we developed a plan involving one of Jesus' followers, a trusted man by the name of Judas. He agreed to lead us to Jesus in exchange for 30 pieces of silver.
Did you say 30 pieces of silver? Well, that's the equivalent of 120 days of labor. Was arresting Jesus really worth that much?
The price was costly, but not as costly as allowing him to continue to lead sheep astray. Jesus was threatening not only our temple system, but our national security. Last night we heard testimony from eyewitnesses who heard Jesus say he would destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days. How dare he speak against the temple like that? When you consider how this man had the ability to mesmerize the crowds with his words and so-called miracles, we couldn't possibly risk him starting a riot. Then Rome would come down even harder against us. The price we paid was worth keeping our security and our faith intact.
What made Jesus so dangerous?
What made Jesus so dangerous is that he actually believed he was the Messiah. The high priest came right out and asked Jesus if he was the Christ, the Son of the Blessed One, and Jesus said, "I am." That was enough right there. The high priest tore his clothes in protest of his blasphemy, and according to our law, he must be put to death.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but we're getting word that there is some new developments coming out of Jerusalem. We're going to turn it over to our field reporter who has been in Jerusalem right now and watching the trial. Over to you.
Yes, that's right. I'm here outside of Pilate's palace, where a crowd has gathered demanding the crucifixion of Jesus. I am hearing that the chief priests made accusations, but Jesus made no reply. Pilate tried to get a response from Jesus, but all he would say when he was asked if he was king of the Jews was, "Yes, it is as you say." I am being told that Jesus said nothing else to defend himself, and just moments ago, Pilate tried to release Jesus by finding nothing wrong with him, but the crowd would have nothing of it. Instead, they demanded the release of Barabbas, a known criminal who was found guilty of insurrection and murder, a known threat to the Roman government. Fearing a riot was about to break out, Pilate reluctantly agreed, and moments ago, Barabbas was released, and Jesus has been sent to be crucified. Back to you, Paul.
Thank you, Caitlin. We will continue to follow this story and bring you the latest developments as they come in to us. It appears our special presentation, The Great Debate, Is Jesus the Messiah, has taken an unexpected turn. I'm afraid we'll not be able to answer that question for you this morning. But given the recent events, let's hear from a few eyewitnesses to get their reactions.
We're back with CNN, the Crossroads News Network, and moments ago I interviewed several bystanders to ask them their thoughts on the question, is Jesus Christ really the Messiah? Let's hear their answers.
I think it was sad what just happened. Jesus was a really good person. I'm not sure whether he was the Messiah or not, but it was a shame what they did. Jesus has done so much good for so many people, and I don't understand why they couldn't just have let him be.
Jesus was there for me when no one else was. I followed him all over Judea these last few years. I saw him heal the sick, feed the hungry, comfort the brokenhearted, and he even raised my brother from the dead. Yeah, I believe in Jesus. I believe he was the Messiah, the one we've been waiting for.
Peter, can you give us your reaction to the events that just transpired? But aren't you one of his closest? You were always the first one to speak out.
Yeah, I believe Jesus was the Messiah. I mean, he did raise me to life after I was dead and all. That was pretty sweet. I mean, who else could do something like that?
Moments ago, I interviewed Barabbas, the criminal who was just released from prison. Let's hear what he had to say.
The Messiah.
I don't know about the Messiah, but I do know this. That man did not deserve what he got. I'm the man who should have been crucified. I'm the one who committed the murder. I deserve to die, not him. That man was innocent, yet he took my place. He died, and I was set free. I don't understand it.
I've seen a lot of criminals. I feel no empathy for them. A crucifixion is a horrible way to die. But it's too bad these criminals didn't figure that out before it was too late. But something was different about Jesus. Even after all the torture he endured, it almost seemed like he wanted to be crucified, like he was willing to let this happen. Instead of fighting or resisting me, he laid himself down in a position so I could nail him to that cross. I never forgot the look in his eyes. It wasn't a look of anger or guilt. It was a look of sympathy and compassion. He even said he forgave me. That was something different about that man. When the 6th hour came, the sky turned black. At the 9th hour, his voice pierced the darkness with a chilling cry, my God, why have you forsaken me?" And after someone tried to give him a drink of wine vinegar, with a loud cry, he breathed his last breath. At that moment, the earth shook, and the curtain of the temple was torn in two. Surely this man is the Son of God. I believe he was the Messiah.
Well, there you have it, folks. We thank you for joining us for this broadcast and for sticking with us as the day's events unfolded. This concludes our special presentation of the great debate, is Jesus really the Messiah? And now it's up to you. It's up to you to decide. Was Jesus really who he said he was? Was Jesus really the Messiah? And if he was, what does that mean for you? How has his life changed yours? And until next time, I'm Paul Marzahn, signing off for the Crossroads News Network.